I'm Rob Hallam and welcome to another edition of Motor Mania. Now at the moment I'm actually stood on the tallest motorway bridge in England, just over the M62 near Leeds, and it's very, very cold and extremely windy, so before I freeze to death or I get blown over the edge, I better tell you what's on this week's show. Well, Ian Royle, he's been to look at that gorgeous classic British car, the Motor Mania. Joanna, Soloman and Trais over, staying on a classic thing, they've been to look at a classic car show. Louise Brady will be finding out if she really is a quick lady. She's been on the time trial circuit, and Steven Vokins, well, he'll be finding out what makes a car quintessentially English. So enjoy the programme.
Which famous British car was described by the motoring press at its launch as the world's supreme small car? Its prototype name was Mosquito, and it sold originally for £358 and 10 shillings. I'm talking about the Motor Mania, a car that is so quintessentially English, and one that is a classic in every sense of the word over the years, and one that is also still fairly readily available if you know where to look, for instance like a specialist here in Manchester. Now the guys that work here, well, if there was such a thing as Motor Mania blood, this lot would have it running through their veins. Now this is very much a family business. You've got yourself, you've got your son working here, your brother here, a firm that was started originally by your father. What's so special for you about the Motor Mania?
We've always been an engineering business. Father was an engineer, and we found these, as opposed to the Beetle, were more durable, and that's really what it boils down to.
So how long would it take you to work on this to get it back into a decent condition?
I mean, if you look around outside the premises, you'll see that red one that's come in today. That is a similar case where a young student's bought it, it's seen it through university. Now she's earning, she's had it resprayed and taken it to that extra stage.
Let's just have a look at this one. I mean, I guess this is what a lot of people would view as, the traditional Motor Mania, the wood panelling down the side. This has got a bit of history about it as well. It's a vicar's or a vicar's wife, isn't it?
Yes, this is a lady vicar. She was born in 1963, so she wanted a car of that age. So she found one in Lancaster and brought it to us, and we've rebuilt it totally.
You've rebuilt it? What sort of condition was it when it first
Well, it was a Cullender. We wouldn't have bought it for spares, it was that bad.
When you get a car in that's in a bad state, you can upgrade a lot of things to what we'd expect in normal
You'd
cars.
go, rather than the old form of electrics with a dynamo, you go to an alternator, convert it to run on a leaded. And while we've had this petrol crisis, our customers haven't had to worry, because they can either put the replacement 4-star in, yes.
Now I guess this is what I traditionally describe as, the ideal, the typical Motor Mania, the two-door with the wood panelling. What was the real reason for using the wood panelling? Was it?
Well, that was just going back to the pre-war method of building cars. So it's almost like a skeleton car. But up from there backwards, that's aluminium and ash. They've always been popular. Yeah. We've never noticed anything other than be busy. They have sort of fashion phases, but if you look at the new Audi shape, the new Beetle shape, it is the shape that's come back again, rounded curves.
The Mania was built by William Morris at Cowley in Oxfordshire, and production started in 1948 and continued through various facelifts until 1971. The Motor Mania was designed by Alec Isigonis, who was later knighted and went on to design the Mini. The first cars had a 918cc engine from the Series E Morris 8. Features at the time included rack and pinion steering, independent front suspension and 14-inch wheels. Now I've got to admit, I've never driven a Motor Mania before, so this is something of an experience for me. And this is the classic shape for me, the two-door Traveller shooting brake variant. And this was originally an army car. It's had some restoration work done to it, and it's in reasonable condition. I think if Agatha Christie's Miss Marple had a car to drive in St Mary Mead, she would be driving a Motor Mania. 22nd December 1960, the 1 millionth miner rolled off the production line, the first ever British vehicle to achieve that feat. And I suppose the fact that there are so many miners about still today is proof that just how well these cars were built for the time. If you fancy a Morris Miner, check out the Morris Miners Owners Club. They have a website as well, and amazingly that has received over 150,000 visitors. Proof indeed of how popular the Morris Miner is.
Fast as we can.
Don't hit those brakes, yeah?
No, never touch them. Never touch them.
That's what we like. Who's your lucky mascot?
Well, that man's Tigger. This is Gromit. Wallace and Gromit.
And who's the best driver?
Fellow who's in first place.
All right, we'll keep an eye on you. Excuse me, Mr. Marshall.
How do you do?
Hello there. Now, what exactly are you doing here with your clipboard? It all looks very official.
What I'm booking the cars in on the arrival control, ready to start the stage. They've had a time allocated from the finish of the last stage, the time into service and ready for booking in here today. So I'm checking sure that the time on their car corresponds with the time on my clock to make sure they're not late.
Now, if they are late, I do believe they get penalised or a heavy fine.
They're allowed up to 5 minutes lateness.
Okay.
I'll just book this car in for you, okay?
Now, I've managed to get myself the best seat in the house, okay? And Ryan here, who's a technical guy, is going to talk us through a little bit of the interior. We'll start off with the pedals right now. There's no rubber on here. And as I press the clutch and the brake, there's no play whatsoever.
Well, the braking system's been upgraded to cope with the demands of competition. So, obviously, like the normal kind of woolliness you'd expect with a road car, because it has to cope for lots of different people, is completely removed, and the brakes are they take a lot more effort, but they work a lot better. In the long run. And the pedals have got those aluminium covers on to make it easier, so you can transfer between pedals without any risk of getting his foot caught under them and stuff like that.
Well, I wouldn't do very well with these trainers on. Rightio. Let's see some results, shall we? And here we have Mandy, Brian. Right, come on, tell us all about it. First time out, what happened? Come on, let's have a look. Are you shaking? She's trembling, she's trembling.
I am feeling a little bit sick at the moment, but other than that, great. We're having lots of fun.
Was it very, very exhilarating?
Oh, it was. It was one of the best things I've ever done.
When the guy in front of us in the sunbeams on 2 wheels and then he spins and then we've got to try and miss him, it's exciting.
Now, we were watching the Mini and it was sticking to the road like it was on rails. I mean, it was fantastic.
You didn't see us on the grass then, no?
I think we missed that bit. Now then, David's just pulled into the pits. He's debriefed his mechanics, so we're going to have a quick word with him to find out a little more about the sport. Follow me. Here we are. David, come over here. Oh. Right, let's have a look at this fine young driver here. Okay, now you're going to tell us a little more. Oh God, I'll sweat on here. My goodness. Now you're going to tell us a little more about the sport, because there's probably viewers out there who'd like to get into the sport, but you're on a bit of a shoestring budget.
Not sure.
So tell us a little more how you got into it.
Well, a friend down the road, he rallies Mitsubishi and European rallies, and he pulled me in at an early age. Kept me on the right tracks. And I've always been into it, and then I went on to college and university. It was there where I met a few people at university, and we got ourselves a rally team together. And at first it was a bit like people weren't up for it at all, but then as we went along, people saw how serious we were. We've got ourselves a car. We've got worldrallying.com as an internet address, which I believe is one of the best internet addresses in the world. And basically, for people to get into motorsport like this, visit the website, there's links on there, motor clubs, other events. You can email us. We do a lot of press releases, get-togethers, invites to rallies and things like that.
time for today here from Three Sisters Raceway, but boy, we've had a cracking time. And as you can see, I've found myself a car, I've found myself a co-pilot, so I'm off for a spin. Bye.
Whew, well, I'll tell you what, it might be very windy and cold up here, but the view is amazing. Now, right after the break, Joanna and Trais, they'll be giving us their classic car show report, and Steve Vokins will be looking into British car heritage. We'll see you soon.
Hi, I'm Trais Dover.
And I'm Joanna Soloman.
We're here today at the Gaydon Motor Heritage Centre with this beautiful XK8 Black Beauty, all 4-litre V8 engine, which is actually made just 20 minutes away from here. And she's mine.
Ha, she wouldn't be all yours if it wasn't for 100 years of development. Right from the beginning, from the classic car right up until the present day car. We're here for the tax exempt day for the pre-1973 cars, and we cannot wait to go down and check the scene and check out what cars are down there.
And she's all mine, literally mine. It's not a borrowed car from Jaguar, this car is mine.
About today's event.
Absolutely.
What's going on. So I'm going to have a little word with the event organiser and see what she can tell me, and I'll catch up with you later.
Catch you later. Pre-exempt cars are all to do with whether your car was registered before 1973. But what happens when your chassis was made before 1973 but it didn't actually get sold as a car until afterwards? They have archives here and experts that can help you trace your car and help save you pounds from the government.
So I've managed to find Jane Roche, who is the event organiser for today. Hi Jane.
Hello, hi there.
I just want to ask you a couple of questions really. Mainly, well, first of all, can you talk a little bit about today's event, what's going to be happening?
Well, the sun's shining for one, and that's always the most important thing at an event. We've got a fabulous collection of pre-1973 tax-exempt vehicles coming today, and they really will span across the entire spectrum. It isn't just one particular mark here, as you'll see as the day unfolds. And now the sun's shining, I'm sure that a lot more owners will come out. Our biggest headache before an event is the weather, and it can either make or break. But these people really are fanatics, and they are so supportive. They do come out in their droves to support a day like today.
And how fantastic to have two singers here at this event. They are in fact very rare. There's only about 23 of them left in the country. This one is nicknamed George, and this one is Sid. Sid was actually dumped in a farmyard and resurrected and fully restored by the current owner. This car is actually 1925 car, but was registered in 1926. So it was obviously left on the shelf for the more mass-produced models. It's done a couple of long trips. In 1953, it went from London to John O'Groats and back again, which in those day and age, where the roads must have been deplorable, was really quite a feat. And if you wanted to pick up one of these beautiful vintage cars, at today's prices, they're about £10,000. Very affordable. I'm not quite sure how affordable the petrol would be at today's prices, however.
I've just been walking past these, what I think are Range Rovers, but it says Velar. I'm a bit confused. Where's the owner? Where's the owner? Hello. Hi, I'm from Man & Motors.
Hello.
Who are you?
Jeff Miller.
Great. Now, can you tell me a little bit about this VELAR?
Well, it's a prototype Range Rover that has the name Velar on it, as it did in 1968 and 69, to fool the public, because we had a new vehicle that no one knew about, and we wanted to keep it that way.
Wow, so it's an actual original pre-production car?
Yes, we built in 1969 and 70, 27 pre-production vehicles were built, and this is number 17 of that 27. It was a name created, in fact, not for Range Rover, but for a little Rover sports car. a one-off prototype, which in fact is in the museum now. So when I needed some subterfuge, I simply brought out this name and used it again. So the Velar Motor Company made a total of 1 sports car and 47 Range Rover prototypes.
Hold on, what's that little thing over there? Yes, what is that?
That in fact is the Velar badge that we made for the #1 prototype, the engineering prototype, which was really the look-see vehicle to see where we were going next. And we made those badges, which were a cross between a Nissan and a London Underground and a Volvo badge. And 2 of these badges were made for the very first prototype in 1967.
Wow. Would you mind lifting that up so we can just have a quick... It does look very much like an Underground. Let's have a look.
Yes, this...
Look at that. Fantastic. You better keep that safe.
And we found a woman driver, there's nothing like it. This is Jo Parr, and her husband used to work for the Root Group, which had something to do with Alpine, and let's find out a bit about that. When did your husband start working for the Root Group?
Well, my husband started with what was called a pupillage after school with the Roots Group, did his training with the Roots Group, and in fact spent his whole life with all the change of names when there were takeovers until it's through to Peugeot today.
Fabulous, and so you specifically wanted one of these cars?
Well, he's always been very interested, and since there are friends with the same cars and a great interest in Sunbeam Alpines, he really knew what he was interested in, and so we started to look for a car that he considered didn't need too much doing to it for it to be respectable, because he likes things that are really kept in tip-top order.
You've owned this car for quite some time. When it was actually picked up and they had to drive it back from the south of England, there was a number of problems, I believe. Can you tell our viewers something about that?
Well, the first major problem was that I was told that it was my car, and I have to be very honest and say my husband's name is on the logbook, but it is my car, and that my husband drove it back because it needed loving, tender care, and we had to stop very regularly in lay-bys whilst it cooled down because it kept overheating.
We've had an absolutely brilliant day, and there's been really a lot of interesting cars here, definitely.
Now, out of all the cars, which one would you like to take home with you?
Well, it's a hard choice, but I must say I do love the white Jag over there. It's absolutely stunning. What about you?
I think for me it would have to be the Ferrari Dino. I did like that. So just you remember at home,
you worship your modern cars with all its fantastic technology,
but it all has a heritage. So from the Gaydon Heritage Motor Industry Trust, we say happy motoring and bye!
In today's global village, it's encouraging to remember that even cars built for a world market still portray many of the characteristics of their country of origin. Take, for instance, the Brits. Here in Britain, it's almost silly to talk about our motor industry because we don't really have one anymore. Of course, there are companies such as Morgan and TVR who make superb cars, but that in itself isn't much of an industry per se. The newly reprieved Rover Group are now British again, and their cars mirror greatly the national character. The Brits like their history and they like driving about in it. It's no great surprise that a major part of Rover's revival plans hangs on the allure of the octagonal MG badge, and cars such as this MGB are revered much more in this country than anywhere else. It's all to do with the fact that subconsciously we all know that we're not the world power we once were, and so we hark back to past successes and invest in them a greater significance than is perhaps due. The MGB, for instance, was not particularly brilliant at anything, was built by the much troubled British Leyland, and even when new was outclassed by offerings from abroad, but is now regarded as a classic and a great British success. This classic status no doubt helps its younger cousin, the MGF, to sell in the numbers it does. But it's not just sports cars the Brits still make with enthusiasm. The cars we make better than anyone else in the world, apart from Formula One cars, are those at the very top of the price scale, the real luxury cars. Cars such as the Bentley. Bentley motor cars are quintessentially British in nature and character. This Azure, for instance, displays the traditional craftsmanship long associated with the mark, the wood, the leather, the refinement, etc. And the subtle elegance of the car typifies the national distaste for brashness and vulgarity. What we see when looking at the Bentley is a perfect example of British restraint. It is an extraordinarily beautiful car, built regardless of cost to the very highest of standards. And yet somehow, while you may disagree, it is not a conspicuous display of wealth at all, more of class and good breeding.
Well, that's it for another Motor Mania, and I'm freezing. Look at that, they're blue. But just before I go home to get a warm up, I'll tell you what's on next week's show. Ian Royle, he's looking at another classic car, but this time it's not from the UK, it's from Germany with the VW Beetle. Steve Vokins, he's going all the way over to Italy, well, not literally, but he'll be looking at Italian car culture. Richard Hammond, well, for once we've got him out of a racing car because he's got to spend a day in a motorhome. And as for me, well, I'll be showing you the highlights of the awesome Max Power Live show earlier this year at the NEC in Birmingham. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.